I
You
gotta
know,
write that. I gotta write that down. Talking back money.
yep,
No,
TBM.
see, Matt, no, Matt,
We call it
you've
TBM.
got to say, no, Matt, all you have to do is erase those two words in your current glossary because you refer to it as FU money. He's just more elegant.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Liquid Lunch Project. I am Matthew R. Meehan alongside my partner, the professor, Luigi Rosabianca. What's on tap today, Lou?
Matt, after these 30 minutes, Walsh Business Growth Institute is going to be a household name with entrepreneurs in North America. Today, we have the founder and CEO, Michael Walsh of Walsh Business Growth Institute. Michael, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me here.
So tell the small business owners at home why they need to engage Walsh Business Growth Institute.
Well, not everybody does need to engage with our firm. The ones that might find it quite helpful are people that want to grow, and they're good at what they do at their current size. Their business is based on the expertise of their people, and they really want to expand their reach and grasp and the impact that they can make from their company. And the other side of it, that's one type. The other type of person would be people who have been growing, and they find that it gets harder and harder, and they really don't feel like they have the freedom, the satisfaction, the levels of profit that they want, things like that. And they know, I see people doing it, and there's got to be a better way. Those people we can help out as well.
So I love the very elegant, concise, immaculate elevator pitch. But let's press C and let's go down to the cellar. We want to go down to the cellar, roll up our sleeves, and we're in the trenches. Give us an idea of the type of industries you work with.
Architecture, engineering, like professional services. We've dealt with accounting firms.
We have an electrical engineering firm. Okay.
Excellent.
They're
Yes.
doing $5 million a year. They are rocking and rolling. They've got 10 employees. They're getting a ton of purchase orders. Everything is smooth. But that poor operator is working 80, 90 hours a week. Okay. How can Walsh come in and make that $5 million business a $20 million business while maybe making that poor gentleman go home and have dinner with his family?
Well, one of the things that I'll say about that is that there are as many ways to grow a business as there are people, because everybody's got different skills and abilities. The problems are all the same. And what happens is that, I find that entrepreneurs are really good. If they can see a problem, they can generally find the resources to fix the problem. If they can't see the problem, but they know it exists, again, they can figure it out. The problems that people run into that really get them are if you can't see them and you have no idea that they exist, even while they're in your grasp. Like you're actually stuck in this issue and you have no idea the problem even exists. You have no access to sort it out and to fix it. So what I find is that after somebody passes their first million in revenue, at 2 million, at 5 million, approaching 10, and then there's this chasm between 12 million and 20 million, there's these underlying issues that lurk beneath the business, and they actually get people stuck. So if you've got a business, well, okay, there's two different things. So we actually have electrical engineering clients, okay. But I'm sorry, Luigi, but if they're 10 people, they're probably somewhere between 1.5 and 2 million. Okay, if somebody's at 5 million, they're probably at like 35 or 40 people, and that's when the real thing happens. But after the first million,
they're overachievers. Come on, they're from Orlando, overachievers.
Well, I got to tell you where that's combined, and you do see those with 10 people. It's where you got a combination of services and some product involved. So it's not uncommon to see companies with 10 or 15 or 20 people actually be hitting 5 million or more. But there's usually both a product and a service involved from that. But that said, here's the thing. As somebody approaches 2 million, okay, there's these underlying issues that are there, and people get stuck in them, and if they figure those out, and those are usually because they've got enough staff, but the problem is that they start they don't have anybody to manage it, and they take the smartest person on their team and make them a manager, except the skills that it takes to manage people are very different than the skills that it takes to actually be an individual contributor. So what happens is they make exactly the wrong choice. and
Yeah.
then as somebody, assuming they get past those things, and people usually do, by the time you're getting to 5 million, you usually have a few teams going on. And that's exactly what happens in electrical engineering firms is you've got teams of people, but what's happening is the service starts to get spotty, and they're not quite hitting their profit margin. You've got complaints start to show up with clients, and sales just don't come as quickly as they used to. Again, there's underlying issues that stop them at that level. Now that as they approach 10 million, that happens again, and there's this chasm between 12 million and 20 million that occurs as well. So if you take our electrical engineering firm, to get this, the number of people for a second, here's what happens is as you grow, there's two things that'll happen. Number one, you'll outstrip your structures. Everybody knows that there's no way the structures and systems and processes that serve a $1 million company will still be relevant to a $5 million company or a $10 million company. You've outgrown, those structures by so much that you need different systems to actually corral that many people or to work with that many people. And in fact, unfortunately, what most people try to do is they try to corral people. So on the one hand, you're outstripping structures. On the other hand, your numbers of people are swelling. Okay, the term herding cats, we come by it honestly as entrepreneurs. I mean, I've actually got, one of the things that I've listed in the latest book that I've done is, if you have 4 people together, so there's the 3 of us, and let's say Luigi, the magician behind the scenes, okay? Or sorry, Jorge. Luigi, I'm looking at you. I'm sorry, I'm looking at you. I'm thinking your name. So you got the 3 of us and Jorge. Among the 4 of us, there are 6 one-on-one relationships. If I go from a 2x2 matrix to 3x3, 9 people, that's 36 relationships. If I go 5x5, 25 people, which is not a big company, okay, there's 300 one-on-one relationships. If I get to 50,
I never looked at it that way. That's genius.
well, just go to 50. There's 1,225 one-on-one relationships. Okay, now think about it. How many times have you gone to a wedding with 50 people? I mean, when you go to weddings, they're somewhere between 50 and 100 people. By the time I'm at 100 people, there's almost 5,000 one-on-one relationships. Okay, no wonder the seating plan at the wedding is so horrible, because I can't put Jerry next to Mrs. McGillicuddy. She'll talk his ear off, and I'll hear about it for months. I mean, but think about it. Like once you're somewhere between 50 and 75 people, the owners stop knowing everybody by their first name, and the owners become to the employees this thing called a boss who can control my future, and there's things that I want and things that I avoid from them, but they stop being real live people. Whereas at 10 or 20 people, everybody knows everybody. Even at 50 people, everybody knows everybody, even though there's 1,225 relationships. So I've got outstripped structures and a whole bunch of people, and they all have their own minds. And so what people try to do is when I outstrip my structures, you try to put in new structures that try to corral them and get them to do what you want to do, because they don't seem to want to do what you want them to do. Okay? And that just causes a world of hurt. So that's how people get stuck, is a combination of outstripping their structures and being in a situation where you got way more people than you quite know what to do with, and you're trying to sort of regain some measure or some illusion of control. And so, at 2, at 5, at 10, and between 12 and 20, all the structures are different at each size, obviously, but the underlying issue is the same. It's the combination of outstripping structures and dealing with way more people. People really lose their freedom. They find it's just really hard, and they just decide, well, I guess business is hard. Well, it actually doesn't have to be that way. And that's what we do with people, is help them overcome the impediments to growth.
So you're a small business owner psychologist.
Among other things, we work with structures. You can laugh all you want. I got to tell you, I'm
still thinking about my poor wife who's getting grief years after our wedding because she sat one of my aunts with another aunt that they hadn't spoken to in years, and she did it inadvertently.
Well, the thing I found is that I'm in one situation where we've got somebody in charge of one province here in Canada. I say here because that's where I live, but I'm actually in the States at the moment. she's trying to exert some control over the province that she's in charge of running, and the co-owner, to whom she reports, is actually trying to get her to do her job, but she thinks she's doing her job, but she really wants to do certain parts but not other parts. And there's this big war. I'm being brought in to mediate that situation. These happen. They happen all the time. And if you can understand just a few basic elements of human behavior. Now we figure we're humans, we know human behavior. Well, not really. but if you can understand some very specific elements of human behavior, all of a sudden the behavior of your people stops being a mystery, and it actually gets relatively easy to support them and actually have them be at their best, which is what we all want.
Michael, you brought up a really valid point that I'd like to spend a little bit more time on, because I know a lot of our entrepreneurs make this mistake repeatedly. Explain to the audience why the skills that make someone your top sales performer, not your top management.
Oh, absolutely. It's one of my favorite topics, Luigi. So when somebody graduates from school and they get into a job, they learn how to be good at something, and they become really, really good at that. And those are they can generate a result. They know how to generate the result. They know how to do it predictably and consistently. And so the skills, and they built it into muscle memory. And then what happens is somebody says, wow, I trust you. You know what? I trust you more than others. Every time you give your word, you keep it. Every time you say that something's going to happen, it just happens. So they figure you're the best manager for my team. Except what you find is, so here's what people have. I've got muscle memory on how to generate a result. I'm the manager. There's now new people there. I know they don't. Well, what there is to do is to tell them, and then they'll know. Except that's not how they got to be an effective contributor. They got to be an effective contributor by discovering what works. Okay? And the biggest single skill a professional manager develops is the ability to support people's thinking. And if I tell you what to do, let's say you accept it, first of all, then what happens is you do what I say and it works, but you'll attribute it to me as the manager because you didn't think of it, I did. Whereas if I can actually provoke your thought so that you discover it, you'll own it, and you'll be a far more effective individual contributor. So people in management spend far too much time telling. And they've spent not enough time actually asking and supporting and helping somebody think something through. And they're like, well, how would they know if I don't tell them? Well, actually work with them. I mean, there's training. That's one thing. But I got to tell you, letting people know, what to do doesn't actually create the issue. And that's where most managers get stuck. Now,
the top athlete doesn't necessarily make the top coach.
Yeah, the top coach might say, I'll tell you what, here's what I'd like you to focus on this. And the athlete's like, really? Yeah, now, here's the thing I want you to think about. Don't worry, but I want you to work on your footwork. I mean, we're in the middle of the NFL season at the moment. Everybody's working on their footwork at some level. That's what you hear about behind the scenes, right? But you know what? They get them to focus on other things as well. And so so how did that feel? Or how did this feel? Somebody that's told what to do doesn't do as well as somebody who says, experiment with this, experiment with that. Tell me what feels right to you. And they're like, it feels a lot better when I do that. Really? Is that what you should be doing? Yeah. Okay, go ahead with that. See, some managers lead with authority and wisdom. Other managers lead with connection, leading to wisdom. So, and the difference sometimes is I'll tell you what to do because I know and you don't. First of all, I feel smaller when you tell me that I don't know what, and you do, whether it's true or not. But if I connect with you, if I just notice things you've done right, that goes a long way. We actually had, in one situation, we've got a group of managers in one of the professional trades, and it's a senior with juniors. So a senior and a junior line up as a pair. And what we did was we said, let's try an experiment. First of all, if anything goes wrong, they tell them immediately because they got to go fix it. I said, well, do you ever tell them the stuff they're doing well? And I said, well, no, because they're paid to do it. I mean, give me a break. I said, yeah, but they're learning. So here's what I want you to do is just keep track of what they do right. And then, and so they were keeping track of what they do right. Then the next week came back, did you do that? And they said, yeah. And I said, well, what did they say when you shared it? They said, oh, well, we didn't share it. So the next time they actually shared it, and they're like, oh my gosh. First of all, they didn't trust that, okay, where's the other shoe? I mean, yeah, you're telling me what I did right, but where's the stuff I did wrong? And they asked, and the senior would turn around and say, well, we already talked about stuff you did wrong. I just want to notice the stuff you're doing right. Within a week or two, the junior was starting to ask the senior questions because the trust went way up, and they knew that it was a safe environment for them to do it. Now, typically, it takes them 3 years to get a junior to be a senior. We had one guy at 14 months already leading crews because he learned so quickly because he was just tapping the wisdom of the seniors, because the senior was just treating him like a real live human rather than this thing called a junior that didn't know anything and had to learn. And that's actually transformed this company. Their productivity has doubled with about a 20% increase in staff. I mean, it's fascinating to see the impact of connection leading to wisdom versus authority and imposed wisdom.
Matt, you're still rethinking that Il Duce approach to a management?
I'm thinking a little bit different here, right? So, have you ever read the article "Who's Got the Monkey" by Harvard Business Review?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when people keep coming back and asking questions, how do you stop them from asking questions and let them figure it out themselves at that point?
Well, actually, it's interesting because that's one of the traps they fell into with this young man.
Okay.
He kept asking questions, and they'd say, and basically, as soon as they knew he knew it, they figured, okay, this is just a security blanket thing, and
Uh-huh.
so they'll go, well, what do you? Every time they ask a question, they go, well, what do you think?
Okay.
How would you do it? And he'll say, well, I do this, and say, see, I knew you knew it. And it took about 3 months of him continually asking questions and them saying, what do you know? And I got to say, the different managers, he'd go to different ones because he's looking for somebody else to give him the answer. And that's not uncommon for employees to do. But they're saying, what do you think? And what are your thoughts? You know what? You're on the right track. Or if there's something there and say, well, what would happen if you did that? What would happen over here? And they say, oh, that's not so good. Okay, so what else might you do? And then next thing you know, he's figuring it out on his own. But the other side of it then is what they noticed is that he just liked to be connected with them. So they just found other ways. They said, instead of doing that, you know what? Let's check in every day or two and give me a brag. One of the things that you found really challenging that you really overcame well. So rather than sitting there feeling, like he had to come up with a question in order to earn their time, he started bragging on different things. And it's like, that was really smart. Can you share that with these guys over here? And all of a sudden, what's happened is the communication between and among the people is grown dramatically as well without having the dependency factor come up, because that's very common for people to do that.
Yeah, I agree. How do you stop a manager, right? How do you identify a manager that just shouldn't be the manager, right? He's the one, somebody comes to him and they ask him a question. He's like, I'll just do it. I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to do it. Then that manager gets burnt out and they take it out on people because they're doing their work. Rather, how do you teach the management to start asking these questions? What's a framework that you use?
Well, one of the things is the question is who should be a manager and who shouldn't. There are
Mhm.
people who get their satisfaction, their top satisfaction from seeing others grow. There are other people that get their top satisfaction from what they personally accomplish. And of course, as a manager, quite often you're doing both. You're delivering your own stuff, but you're also supporting others. And so what I find is sometimes is to tell the truth that the person shouldn't be a manager. The reason a lot of people go to be managers is because of the fact that that's what pays more. So part of the thing is to structure the company so that if you can be a really, really strong professional, a technical expert, and perhaps, share some of the wisdom from the technical expertise, it's sort of a technical team lead as opposed to a full-on manager. Create space in the organization so that those people can be paid just as well. You get people doing what they actually enjoy doing, and people that shouldn't be managers, you get them out. And for somebody that's just learning, but you think that they would be good, all you have to do, if somebody really is interested in the growth of somebody else, you point to them and say, okay, now you just gave them the answer. How did you provoke their thought? And they're like, no, I didn't. Okay, so how might you do it differently next time? And somebody who's really interested in the support of others, they will naturally gravitate there. The people that want to be this leader with 1,000 helpers are the people that should really actually be technical experts. So just steer them in that direction as well. And you make that just as financially rewarding and just as many accolades and all that as the manager would get. And I find that that's usually the best way to resolve those issues.
I love that. Now, in your book, and you coined this framework, freedom by design. Why don't you tell the audience a little bit about that?
Well, my attitude is that just about everything in business is a design issue. And if I can identify what the underlying issues are, then what happens is you get more freedom in your business because you can actually do the things that you really love that make the biggest strategic difference and support people, to doing the things that would make a big difference from them. The fundamental difference is when I bring in structures, okay, how do I bring in structures that support people to be at their best? We all know that if I had, 10 employees and everybody was working in their sweet spot, and I built a team of complementary strengths where everybody's doing what they do best and they really enjoyed their participation in that, those are the teams that just sing. Those things just go really, really well. It makes it easier for owners and managers to support it. The employees love it more. The profitability goes way up. Sounds almost utopian. Well, the truth is that instead of putting in a structure that corrals people or tries to constrain them, integrate with what they do best and align with that. And what you find is that actually goes really well. And so inside the book, one of the things we do is I've actually got a 7-point freedom framework that allows people, like, the question is, what are the different areas where you need to sort of tweak or adjust your thinking? And if you do those things, what happens is you end up getting those types of teams that really, really do well and are far more profitable. I mean, people go, well, that sounds like mom and apple pie. I'm like, are you kidding? This is the most bloody-minded, profit-oriented system I've ever found. You can literally get 50 and 60% increases in profits without any additional staff if you actually get them doing what they do best and loving it. And you do it in a way that really honors them too. Instead of having a well-oiled machine where people are cogs, you actually go to an intelligent ecosystem where everybody has each other's back, because that's the thing that generates the result for everybody.
So how do you develop that culture? I know it all starts with core values. A lot of people speak about core values, but all the companies that you work with, how many come to them that don't have any core values at all, or they think they have core values, but nobody knows what they are?
Well, everybody has core values. You operate from some code always. And so one of the keys is uncovering them. Okay. And people treat the core values like they're the be all and end all. And I got to tell you, they're critical. I'm one to agree that they are critical. And where they're used best is both in the hiring process. Okay. Like, literally, getting the right people on board is literally half the battle. Okay. If you can hire smart, that's literally half the game. The other half is what you do when you get them. So the core values become instrumental in that, because you don't let anybody in your doors that are not aligned with your thinking. Now, it's not like some core values are better than others. It's what's better for you. Some people might say dare to venture is one of our values. Now, that's not a value like integrity or something like that. I mean, it doesn't work if anybody steals from your company. But dare to venture, some people play it safe. Other people actually say, let's try, let's fail. You can't do anything wrong that we can't correct. That's how you'll learn. And so in that company, a person that actually is ready to step out does really, really well. Somebody that has to be checking on everything because they're worried about their safety, they don't fit in that environment. They do fit in a different environment who might have the core value of measure twice, do it once sort of thing. So the values do play in, but the first place they play in is actually in how you hire.
Michael, does your client base affect your core values?
I would say it's the opposite. Your core values affect your client base. It's interesting because as you grow, strategy is not about your method or what you do. It's usually about what you say no to. And the bigger you get, the more you get the opportunity to say no, because what happens is as you grow, complexity magnifies. Like, you get things get a lot more complex. The more I say no to the wrong fit, the more I can do things for the right fit people that can align. And the key is, if you're clear on who your ideal client is, then everybody who's not that, I mean, you have tolerances, but anybody who's not that, you just pass on, because life's too short. So I've seen people have their clientele affect their values, but it's not that they affect their values, because the values are there. They may be uncovered, or they may be hidden. They may not be uncovered, but the values are the values. Is whether I betray my core values to get that extra client. And the key is to play big enough so that you're dealing with enough different possibilities that you don't absolutely need every client, because when you need every client, that's when you'll actually betray your own values to get them, because you need the money. Okay, so I mean, there's a number of different ways that you can protect against that as you grow. But I find that usually happens in the first million or two. Once somebody's past a couple of million, unless you really have somebody that's a little bit lost, you find that it's not hard to get that back in line.
We affectionately refer to that here as commission breath.
It's so true. So true. You know what? If your car's on the end of a hook and you're eating Cheerios with water instead of milk, because of the fact that, the repossessor is going to keep your car if you don't come up with it, and somebody who's not quite the right fit, all of a sudden, sure, we can help you. But I got to tell you, if you got a bunch of what we call talking back money, okay, and in your back pocket, and somebody's not quite the right fit, from a commitment to serving them, it's better to pass on them, because you're not going to give them your best because you're not a right fit.
I gotta write that. I gotta write that down. Talking back money.
Yep.
Matt,
we call it TVM.
No, Matt, all you have to do is erase those two words in your current glossary, because you refer to it as FU money. He's just more elegant.
Okay, and you could have follow-up money if you want. That's okay. I mean, there's lots of ways. We all have our methods.
No, I love that. I actually like that a lot. I'm writing that down right now. TBM.
But Michael, let's go back to my electrical engineering firm. Okay.
Yes.
That firm is trying to elevate its practice and elevate its client base, right? They're trying to swim upstream by taking on larger jobs, more sophisticated jobs. Does that affect your core values, because you're changing your target a bit?
Well, here's the thing. The core of any business is your ability to generate a result that actually gives your customer value and gives you profit while facilitating the growth of your people. In the past, it used to just be what takes care of your client and gives you the profit. In a information age, in a networked world, when you're seeing more and more service-based companies, you also have to include your people, because they are part of your core. Okay. And it's the ability to generate that result that counts. Okay. So I can do that with bigger projects and different things, but that's a function of the skill development of my people and the size of teams that I use, as far as that's concerned, not a function of the values that I apply to it. So in fact, if you take a look, what is a $1 million company and what are the things that a $1 million company and a $5 million company share? I would assert that you have the same or similar product mix, okay? Sometimes not even, because your product can morph, but that's one of the things they share is the product mix. The next thing they share, they actually share the values, because the values, you'll just naturally attract people that have similar values, okay? Other than that, there's nothing that they share. The business is different. And so as time goes on, you're dealing with different businesses, but the value, you bring who you are to whatever size of game you play from that side of it. So the key is to uncover them and get what's really there for you, and you're fine. But now the idea of thinking, well, at $1 million and $2 million and $5 million and $10 million and $20 million, I'm dealing with 5 different size companies. The truth is, yes, you are. And you're dealing with fundamentally 5 different companies. Yes, you are. Any question why it's hard? But then again, any parent has no illusion about whether a 3-year-old has the same behaviors as that same child at 13 or that same child at 23. I promise you, at 13, when somebody's struggling through what it's like to go through puberty, you have a very different person on your hands than you did with a 3-year-old, where you're trying to make sure the right things go in the mouth and the wrong things stay out of the mouth. I mean, that's very different. And then at 21, put any kid in a sandbox, you're like, okay, don't eat the sand, Johnny. I mean, you just, things like that. But yes, you need to eat your carrots, right? But the thing is that we deal with different things. Now, it's the relationships that allow us to grow through the different sizes of a child. It's the relationships you have, both with yourself and your values, but also with your client base as they evolve, that actually allow you to scale. That's why if you go from connection, to wisdom, as opposed to authority to wisdom, it actually makes it easier on everybody in the company. So are the values important? Yes, but don't kid yourself. They're actually there. And unless somebody really ignores them, and people do take shortcuts and ignore them, okay, but they make messes, and life actually takes care of them. I'm sure you see people that it's like, yeah, we're not investing in them. It's like, there's no way. This is their fourth venture, and you know what? They get it up to 4 million, and then I don't know what happens. In fact, they got one up to 9 million, and it's like it just blew up bigger, because they're violating their own values. I mean, there really are as many ways to grow companies as there are people, and if they align with their own values, they'll get there. Like, really, you just got to get the impediments out of the way. If you help them get the impediments out of the way, you allow the brilliance to shine. But I've also seen owners, it's more about, I think I have to be a manager, even though I love being the specialist. Well, what do you do when the owner's like that? That takes a really interesting design and structure to support the owner to be the best that he or she can be. And at the same time, support them in organizing the company so that it works. So that's usually systems and structures and supports, not values. If you get the values nailed, you're in really good shape for the long term, and everything else really does change. So you may say that, well, it's their values are misaligned. No, they just don't know what to do with 50 people. Okay, so human behavior kicks in. Now, so do I have your permission to share something?
Permission granted.
Thank you. There are 4 basic human behavioral elements that if people just understand these simple 4 basic human behavioral things that we all have, then what you find is that life just gets easier. So first of all, every single one of us has the biological need to survive. We will do what it takes to stay alive. Okay? And we have an innate desire to thrive. Now, if you look at those two for a second, people think that human beings are logical. Well, we kind of have some logic every now and then, but I promise you, we're not. We're emotional, okay? And the reason is because logic is too slow. Emotion works very quickly, okay? There's a bus coming at me. Well, what are the pros and cons of no more me, okay? Whereas if I go bus, eek, and I run, you know what? I stay alive. Emotions are very quick. That's not a flaw of human behavior. It's a feature. Now, not everything we do is life and death. And as a result, emotions sort of play, get in the way. But we have that need to survive, and it will be there, and it'll trump thriving all the time. Now, you don't need to get all your survival needs for life handled before you do any thriving. Otherwise, why would a 5-year-old ever share a toy? Right? So I've got the need to survive and the innate desire to thrive. And if things feel safe, I'll play with thrive. If they don't feel safe, I go to survive. And survive's about me and us. Thriving is about others and participating with others. The third thing that we have, because I said I'd share 4, is we have both the ability and the need to connect. So, because we know inherently that together we're stronger, and it keeps us safe, but it's also the community inside which we thrive. And then the fourth thing that we've got is we have the ability to adapt to a changing environment, even if we don't like the environment. Look what happened with the pandemic. I mean, who would have thought so many businesses would survive sending everybody home, right? And so, but we did. We figured it out. Look what happens when there's a major issue. I mean, the devastation that they're going through right now in Jamaica with the hurricane. Everybody is bonding together. Together we're stronger. They're adapting. They're figuring it out. And you know what? We really do care about each other. And if you can tap that, you can really set something up that works for everybody. Okay. And that's why if you work with an ecosystem approach where everybody gets to count, all of a sudden we can connect and work together. We do want to have each other's backs, and we want to create something that's special because we have that innate desire to thrive. But I got to tell you, we have to protect against the biological need to survive. When somebody's acting weird, it's your perceived future that shapes your present. Your past is your past, but we're always on the lookout. We spend most of our time into the future. If we see a threat, or if we see a dim or stuck future, we're not very happy in the present. If we see a brighter future or possibilities, we don't even have to be descriptive, then we're far more settled and far happier in the present. If I see somebody with a bad attitude, I won't say change your attitude. I'll go get curious about what's the future they see. Where do they feel stuck? What is it that they anticipate is going to happen, which actually makes it really hard for them in the present? Or, and if I could give them access to some possibilities that they could create, because of course the future's not cast yet, that might make things better. And how could they change the course of a few things? All of a sudden, you've got people that are far more happy in the present. So if I look at those 4 elements, and even just being able to read the tea leaves a little bit on if they're happy, there's usually because they see a brighter future. That's why leadership, when people talk about leadership, it's rallying people to a brighter future. It's about inspiration. Management's about, how do you cause superior performance in others? You can't really cause it, but you can support it, right? And again, the more I can get people to think, the better that goes. But you notice that leadership's about inspiration. Well, it's because the brighter future has me more settled and more productive in the present. And that works better for everybody. So those four little things, the biological need to survive, the innate desire to thrive, the ability and the need to connect, and the ability to adapt to a changing environment. If you know how to tap those as an owner, your freedom grows. Freedom in your business, freedom from your business, and freedom because of your business. Those are the three freedoms we focus on through the latest book I wrote, Freedom by Design.
I love it. Michael, it's a great part of the show where you can tell everybody where they can find your book, how they can get in touch with you.
Okay, so if you're looking for the book, the easiest place is just go to Amazon, and Amazon in any country will give it to you. Okay, or you can go to my website. It's right there. I know she's showing it on the screen. The website is walshbusinessgrowth.com, and Freedom by Design is the established business owner's guide to grow, make an impact, and find the joy again. But Amazon in a whole bunch of different countries has it. So that's there. That's the second book. The second book I wrote was Thinking Big is Not Enough. And the first book I wrote was Business by Design. And so the Business by Design is for people that are looking to get their first million. Thinking Big is Not Enough is about the story of a woman that I connected with. She was 52 at the time. She had a little 400,000 pound business in the UK. And in 4 years, we got it to 2 million, or we helped her get to 2 million. In the next 4 years, she brought it to 7.3 million pounds. So 400,000 pounds would be about 600,000 US. The 7.3 million is about 10.5 million US. And she did that in an 8-year period. And then she, she sold it. She's retired now. But this is a woman, when I started with her, she was 52, and she'd spent 10 years between 250 and 400,000 pounds. She loved the notion of a people-centric approach where she could actually create an environment where everybody grows. And that's why, things just worked really, really well for her. She was in the e-learning business. And so that the second book is the result of some of the first half of her journey. She read the first book, and I had to laugh because I came into Heathrow. We were gonna spend a few days together, and so I come into Heathrow, and she said, "Well, I'll meet you at Paddington Station." So I, take the Heathrow Express, get off at Paddington Station, and here's this woman who's got my book, and she's looking at the little picture on the back, trying to see if she can see me out of these throngs of people. So she didn't know what I looked like because she can't bring the website to Paddington, and I wasn't sure what she looked like. So it's like, just with all the people that are there, first time you meet people, right? But I knew the woman with the book. That's how I recognized her. I said, "I know that book." And she's like, "Oh, you must be Michael Walsh." It's like, "Yeah, I am." So we had a little bit of fun.
Michael, thank you so much for being here. This was a blast. I do have one question before I let you run.
Yes.
What is one mistake that you see most business owners make that's detrimental?
They think they have to know everything rather than learning to trust their people. You have a bunch of different people who each have different experiences, and even somebody who's new has different ideas. And the veterans, they've got a lot of institutional knowledge. Just by opening it up and allowing for their contributions, what you find is that the pressure on the owners actually drops. And it's interesting because with a lot of companies, the bigger they get, the more the owners feel that pressure. But the truth is that the ones that learn how to tap the power of the knowledge of their people, those are the ones that A, have the best time, and B, their people do too.
I love that. I couldn't agree more. Everybody, that's a wrap of the Liquid Lunch Project. We'll catch you on the next episode. Thank you, Michael.
Let's go!